Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner. And we're here with a very sad and special episode of VSW Podcast. Today we have learned of the passing of WWE legend Scott Hall. He had suffered multiple heart attacks after undergoing hip surgery, and he was in a coma on life support. His family decided to remove him from that life support, and a few hours later, we have learned that he has indeed passed away. This is a very sad day in professional wrestling. Scott Hall, otherwise known as Razor Ramon, is a pinnacle person in this industry. And he has redefined this industry. And, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. A little bit about his career. He started back in the day in AWA. I don't know if a lot of people knew that. And he actually did. He left there and went for WCW for a little bit as the Diamond Stud. This was, 91. He was in that Chamber of Horrors match on Halloween Havoc 1991. And, this was pre-Razor Ramon. And then we saw him in 92 jump over. And, he just had this arrogance about him, just this oozing machismo. He, just something about, the way he entered in. This was now, we're talking the next generation, 92, 93. So the characters, they're bright. Some of them are very cartoonish. Some of them are over the top. This one was very cool. Now, while he was, a bad guy and people didn't like him, he showed that bad guys could be cool. And I remember in 93, he had a great world title match with Bret Hart in the Royal Rumble that year for the title. He had actually antagonized the Hart family and broke I believe he attacked. I believe it was either Owen or Stu. No, it wasn't Stu. He was making fun of Stu. He was attacked. I believe he attacked Owen, and it was building into this family feud. Great match, and we would see him. He would become part of Monday Night Raw when it began in 93, and the infamous match against another pioneer in this industry, and that would be the 1-2-3 Kid. He was the underdog in this match coming in. Razor Ramon with all the cockiness, and the 1-2-3 Kid came in real fast with the victory, and Razor Ramon went wild. He was heated. And, this would be a little bit of a feud for a while. And then, something started to change. Fans started to root for this guy. They wanted to see more of Razor Ramon. They wanted to see more of the bad guy. And, they wanted to see him. And, he started becoming the good guy in a lot of senses in his battles. Yeah, I know, Aaron Swan. It's so sad. I'm very in shock about it just because of the way the events had happened so fast. He wasn't, sick for weeks. He went in for something that was pretty routine. Well, not routine, but you know what I mean. Hip surgery or not something you would think that 3 heart attacks or multiple heart attacks would come out of. It is very sad. But his first he would actually start his little collection of intercontinental title reigns. He was a 4-time IC champion. His first time, he defeated Rick Martel in a great matchup. And now, if any of you guys got Peacock, if any of you got Peacock, you can go in there and under the home video section for Coliseum. There's actually a Razor Ramon video that was released, and it has all these matches, all his victories, all his IC wins. It's actually a really good movie. It actually even has some unreleased matches that he had, like one against Yokozuna. And, a lot of great matches that were on that VHS, and it's actually on the Peacock Network if you guys have that. But, he would go on to beat Martel after winning the Battle Royal with Martel. Both of the two finalists would go on to face each other, the winner becoming the champion. And then he would have one of the most greatest, matches in all of wrestling history. WrestleMania 10, champion versus champion. You had Shawn Michaels saying he was the real IC champion. Razor Ramon, he was the real IC champion. These two had to battle it out, and it was the first ever ladder match to take place in WWE. True history, as Razor Ramon would go on to take that victory and just define wrestling right there. It opened up a whole new thing. Ladder matches now were a thing. Titles being hung were a thing. It would lead in later on, Money in the Bank. It all stemmed from this ladder match. But, as time went on, Razor Ramon, as he was great friends with Kevin Nash. He actually was great friends with HBK. Sean Wolfman, 1, 2, 3 Kid. And, and Triple H too. And they all became friends. They formed what would be known as the Clique. Yeah, you are right there, Aaron. He did. And that's what I was saying. His real start was actually in AWA for a little bit. But, like I said, he was over there with Hennig, actually. Kurt Hennig. And after that, he did go into WCW for a little bit again as Diamond Stud, and he was in that 91 Halloween Havoc. Then he went into WWE as Razor Ramon. But he had already, you are right, he had already known Kevin prior to that. And, it wouldn't be the last time. After that ending, everybody saw, the Clique and all that. And, the next, thing we knew, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, they're on WCW. And it was a big deal at the time. I remember it. I was, growing into teenage years there. And this was a big deal. You had one of these major shifts. Yeah, Hogan going there, cool. Macho Man, yeah. But this was different. The way they entered, the way they came in, and what they started was just incredible. The birth of the New World Order. Hogan would eventually join them in this stable, along with many other WCW superstars. This probably became the number one stable in all of wrestling history. I mean, some rival the Bullet Club just because it goes through multiple promotions, but still, everybody knows NWO. Everybody knows NWO for life. Scott Hall, he was a major pinnacle in part of WCW's success in the Monday Night Wars in the beginning, and helping WCW establish Nitro. Him and Kevin Nash, Hogan, and later on, becoming part of this stable and really just running havoc in WCW. And he wouldn't just sit there, and be dormant neither. He became television champion, 2-time United States champion, 7-time World Tag Team champion. He also won the 97 World War III Battle Royal. But, like I say, all good things come to an end, as WCW came to an end. And that was the end of it, and Scott really didn't go back. He didn't go back to WWE. That was all done. He was back in early 2002, though. He would come back. And at WrestleMania 18, Stone Cold, they had the little NWO come back. He battled The Rock, Rikishi, Bradshaw, among others. A few people. And then finally in 2014, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And, like I said, for someone who never won the world championship in WWF, WWE, or WCW, he played a major role in wrestling history. He also did show up in ECW too. He wrestled there as well. And, like I said, growing up, I was around, 93. I was at that age, the transition between the 80s wrestling, Hogan, and the larger-than-life characters, switching over to the next generation, where you had these more comedic characters. You had these more jokester kind of gimmicks, Jerry the King Lawler, Repo Man, Doink the Clown. And then you had Razor Ramon. Like I said, he was one of the first guys. Him, Shawn Michaels, was one of the first two, in that era that really showed me, how heels worked, how the bad guys worked, and how the bad guys could really get the crowd over. We saw this back in the day in the 80s, yeah, but it didn't work right. Randy Savage, when he turned heel, he was bad, but guess what? The fans hated him. Razor being bad, Shawn Michaels being bad, the fans were split. And eventually, these guys would have to turn good. And, like I said, this is just a very sad day, though. I want to go back. This is a very sad day in wrestling history. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, finding out he has passed away. And just... I'm just reading the comment here. Yeah, they did. NWO was totally different than what WWE was doing at the time. And that's what I think really gave WCW Nitro its edge. I loved Nitro. I was a big Nitro fan back in the day. I would definitely watch both. At some point later on, I would start to flip to WWE because it got better. But for a long time, WCW held my attention. And this whole NWO and the realism, yes. And you had, so many people involved. And I think Eric Bischoff played a great role as, he played in that. And, Hogan was in it, but he wasn't the main man. Yeah, some, admit he was Hollywood Hogan, but still everybody looked to Hall and Nash, I think, as the real pioneers for NWO. And they were. I mean, they started it. They came in, the outsiders. And they definitely made, an impact. And it triggered, even into the WWF realm at the time, what they were doing in WCW. Because a lot of fans did. And, you got to remember, Vince McMahon, I don't think was too happy about Scott Hall and Kevin Nash leaving. Because we did get a fake Razor Ramon and fake Diesel for a little bit. Which was kind of funny, seeing them. Because you could clearly tell that they weren't the, real wrestlers. I think they used them in a Royal Rumble or something, and you could just clearly tell it was something off. It was like ordering your wrestler on Wish or something. But this is how much of an impact he was. When Hogan left, you didn't see them making, a fake Hulkster. So, definitely I think it hurt Vince a little bit when he did leave. And, he took a lot with him, and he took a lot of steam. Because he had ideas. That's what I think people don't understand about Nash and Hall. These guys weren't just wrestlers. They were behind the scenes people, They had a mind for the business. They had a mind for the booking. They had a mind of understanding. And they were able to kind of backroom control things. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Razor Ramon, What they did in WWE, they were able to kind of do in WCW. Yes, you're right. Hogan was an afterthought. Um, and maybe who knows if it was gonna even go that route. They might have had a decision to have Hogan fight the NWO. Who knows? But it did end up turning Hogan, which that just made it solidified as a great moment. But it was without Hall and Nash ever entering WCW, you would have never even had that. And yes, exactly. It came at a time where the internet was very, very in its infant stages. People in AOL chat rooms doing role playing games with Star Wars characters. Nobody was, sitting on Twitter rambling about the cheat sheets or what's going to happen. And definitely nobody was talking about opinions. If you wanted to read that, you read magazines. It was total different time for fans. We actually had to watch these shows. You couldn't just kind of browse, or wait the next day. If you waited the next day, you were hanging from your friends at school or work or wherever you were going. You had to definitely. E-Feds too, definitely E-Feds. People, that's where E-Feds all started, back in the chat room days. And I still know some people that still are in those today. It's kind of funny. Like the original ones. It's weird. But, yeah, those were the wild times, though, those 90s, that period. And then, that late 90s period. Because here you had, these great things happening on wrestling television. You had Stone Cold over here. You had NWO running wild over here. Everything going, and it did draw people closer together. I remember the next day, morning, I'd go to school. Everybody would be lined up in the morning classroom for whatever, roll call, whatever the hell it was. And, they'd all be saying, hey, what did you watch last night? We'd be like, well, we watched both. Or, we watched Raw. And the other kid would be like, well, I watched Nitro. This is what happened. That what happened, We would spend all morning talking about it. And then, if it was a pay-per-view, Sunday, all day Monday would be talk, about what happened then and what was leading up to Raw. And then Tuesday would be that. And finally, when SmackDown came around, that would happen. And then you had Nitro and Thunder, of course, running. So you had a bunch of wrestling going on for us fans back in the day. And I don't think you had that mainstream head-to-head kind of wrestling for a long, long time. Not until, like AEW came around and they ran up against NXT. But, it was a different time for wrestling. I actually kind of miss it. I think, a lot of today's wrestling does get overwhelmed by the fans just kind of jumping in, saying their 2 cents. Everybody wants to be a booker. That's great. And then, there's people that have watched wrestling all their lives. And they probably could do a great job running a company. I'm not saying they can't, but there's a lot of fans out there that are just out there just to make everybody's day miserable. And you can tell who those fans are. Yeah, definitely. We definitely had those NWO shirts back then. And some of us, and then of course some of us had the DX shirts too. Red and black, of course. When Sting joined the Wolfpack, it really took off, I feel. And then you had other people, and then you had, Nash joining that, and it just really evolved into something great. It was like almost another promotion within a promotion. The video games are great for it. WCW versus the World. Then you had WCW versus NWO. And it was one of my favorite N64 games. But actually, I believe the first game that you were able to be Razor Ramon in was the Royal Rumble game for SNES and Sega Genesis, if I am correct. And then after that, you were able to play him again in Raw is War. And I believe they also put him in the arcade game. That kind of fighting version of WWE wrestling that they had back in the day. And of course, he's in all the modern games. It's sad. I just bought 2K22. And, I paid for the NWO version to get all these guys, and, it's sad. Yeah, those were fun too. I remember the Nitro and Thunder games. Those were a lot of fun. And the thing about that is, a lot of people found them kind of repetitive because there wasn't a lot to it, but they had such a deep roster of hidden characters. Like every time you would win stuff with one person, it would unlock another person, and it would keep going and going and going. It definitely was the wrestling version of NBA Jam, definitely. And, those were fun times for gaming. But like I said, I just got the new 2K22. Great game compared to 20. And it does come, if you did get the NWO version, it does come with that, that NWO Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Six, and Hogan. And it comes, of course, with the regular Razor Ramon and so forth there, as both characters are a little bit different. Razor had, the purple attire and the gold chain, that Miami kind of Cuban lifestyle. And, Scott Hall in the outside is kind of the same, but he was more edgier, and he was more real. It was more real and less, gimmicky. And, like I said again, my condolences. When I read that, what Kevin Nash wrote this morning on his Instagram, it really was just heartwarming and heartfelt, and I just really felt for him because, that is his best friend. And, this isn't something that was expected. And I can't even imagine what he's going through right now. And I can see all the fans, just the outpour of fans all day long. The prayers, the good wishes, just everything. It's great to see because, deep down, besides all the negativity that's been said in the past, and Scott Hall was a great person and a great asset to the world. People, you got to put people's personal issues aside. Yeah, he might have had some demons that he was facing. And if you've ever read his backstory and all of that, he had some troubles. I'm not going to say he didn't. But, that's neither here nor there. And, I saw some bullshit on social media that just, pushed me over the edge, about him. And I was just like, go screw yourself. You're going to talk like that. You don't even deserve to be in the wrestling community. Get out of here. We don't need that kind of negativity on these kind of days. Yeah, he probably will be mentioned on both shows. I think he's going to be mentioned all over wrestling. He was a great asset, a legend all around. He, like I said, he did even show up in ECW. I saw a clip of that today. It's on Twitter, actually. If you go out there, Chris Bay, I believe, posted it. And it's when Scott Hall was in ECW. But, he had his demons. He overcame them, and he did the best he could. And he inspired generations upon generations of wrestlers and workers out there alike. And fans, really. We were lucky here in the New England area to get him to come out here a few times a year. Back before the pandemic, we would see him out here quite a few times. Very lucky. But you could catch him, WrestleCon. He was all over the place. And, I just always seen people with their photos and always had a great experience. And always would say, he was a great person to meet. And it's sad, I don't remember the last time I met him, but, I would have thought that would have been the last time. I know there's a lot of fans. I saw a lot of photos today on Facebook with a lot of my friends that went to the last meet and greet. I did not. It was a few years back. He was with him, X-Pac, and Nash. And they were doing a signing, and they did a wrestling match, I believe. And, I didn't get it. I didn't get to go to that show, and now I'm kind of kicking myself. I wish I did. Yep, and that is the truth right there, Brian. Bad things don't last, but bad guys do. he's gonna live on. He's gonna live on in people's thoughts, prayers, and memories. Yeah, and that's the thing, Aaron. DDP is a godsend to a lot of wrestlers. Unfortunately, the wrestling business is a very hard business. It's not easy. There's a lot of emotional shit that comes with it outside of even outside of what else you're dealing with and what else you came into it with. You're on the road. There's very little support. There's a lot of stress from fans, outside sources, inside sources, backstage drama, a lot of stuff. And a lot of these guys, unfortunately, turn to drugs and alcohol to cope with this. It's known fact. I mean, we've seen it. A lot of wrestlers turn down this path. Jake the Snake, a lot of them. And, DDP has helped a lot of them overcome this disease of alcoholism. And yeah, maybe it was a contributing factor, like you said, but that's neither here nor there. At the time he died, he wasn't, 5 bottles deep into, a fifth of vodka and, running around the streets and got hit by a car. No, this was something he did routinely. And, it's just a really sad overall situation. And, I'm glad he was sober for his last years, here on Earth, with us. And I'm glad he was able to overcome those demons that he was facing. And yes, DDP definitely prolonged him and Jakes and probably other wrestlers that we don't even know about. I got to wonder if he was helpful in, John Moxley kind of coming to his, getting the help that he needed recently. As, Jake the Snake is in AEW as well. I don't know. I mean, I'm DDP. I'm sorry. But yeah, you got to wonder about these things. But, again, I was watching that Coliseum video today and just watching some of the matches of Ramon. And, it's wild just going back, to that era, the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s of wrestling when it was that next generation. Everything was colorful. The entrance was colorful. And all of a sudden you'd hear that little, that sound, the crash. Out he comes. Toothpick in the mouth. And he had some great matches with some, great talent at the time. I'm going to do maybe a vote of people's favorite matches. I tried to ask on other social medias. Everybody's saying they really like that Shawn Michaels ladder match. And that's just a legendary match right there. It's not, that was probably one of his best WWF matches. He had great WCW matches as well. But as far as WWF, as far as the Razor character, I'd say, yeah, that is his best. I am a fan of that Bret Hart match. I did like how it kind of brought in the family aspect of it. And he was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. And they would actually use that storyline later kind of down the line when it was actually Jerry Lawler kind of baiting him later on in 93 and interfering with his family, which would have led to the Survivor Series 93. But then Jerry the King Lawler got arrested for some kind of sexual misconduct with a minor, and we got Shawn Michaels leading the team against Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation at that 93 Survivor Series, and we would see Owen Hart kind of defect from the family at that point. Yep, he will. And like I said, he fought in the first ladder match. There was, I don't believe, no ladder match in WWE prior to that double champion IC championship ladder match with Michaels. And yeah, it was wild. And, like I said, he has been just definitely someone that everybody's looked up to in this industry. For sure. Everybody that I know, that I've seen, that I've watched and talked to, that actually get in the ring and wrestle, whether they be from the local indie scene here or, even in WWE or AEW, They have all looked up to Scott Hall to some level. They've all learned something from this guy, whether it be in ring or how he's, changed his life outside. He's just been a great inspiration to everyone. Yeah, I believe you did get that IC title there, Brian. I remember you telling me and you brought it to Mania a few years back, I believe, if I'm correct, when they had the access down in the New York, was it New York Jersey line there? And you got a bunch of the IC champions actually sign that belt of yours. That's pretty awesome. You got to meet Scott Hall back then. Yeah, I could see that, Aaron. And the fact that they were kind of friends on the inside, I think they had a really good, solid chemistry together when they did work against each other. It just was magic. Yeah, Hart versus Ramon was okay, but Hart had his arrogance and his whatever. These guys, while we didn't know they were friends, maybe at the time, if you're going back, they wrestled as friends. You could tell they put in that passion, the work for that match, and they gave the fans exactly what they wanted, and they delivered it at a time that, WWE was transitioning heavily. They had gotten rid of Hogan. They had gotten rid of Savage. They sidelined him off to the commentary. Yeah, he came back a little bit against that feud with Crush, but he was commentary. Hogan, the big guy, they moved him out. A lot of the bigger guys in wrestling, gone. Earthquake. All the big guys that were in the 80s and 90s, gone. Obviously, Andre the Giant, he passed away. So there was definitely a transition time in wrestling. You had the goofy characters again coming in. I know a lot of people aren't fans of that. Some of them worked out. Some of them just didn't. Oh, it was the IC champion back then. That's what I try to tell people today. Right now, the IC champion to me, what's shown on TV is worthless, useless, and worthless. It has no value whatsoever. It just, they'll put it on a pre-show, they'll put it on anybody, it doesn't matter. Back then, there was little tiers. There was a heavyweight title and there was the Intercontinental. The Intercontinental was for the people that weren't heavyweights, but were just as good, or were on their way to move up. Before you would be a world champion, you would be an IC champion. This was mostly how it happened. Some people skipped that. Like Hogan, he skipped it, went right for the world champion. Andre skipped it, went right for the world title. But look at people like Randy Savage. He was an IC champion. He was battling, Ricky the Steamboat prior to that. And that gave that title great prestige back then. Bret Hart was IC champion. He was battling Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was IC champion. All these people were IC champions before they ever got to the world champion stage. And it did mean just as much. It was the second biggest title. It was always on the card. It was a big deal. You had great legends like Honky Tonk Man and others. He's actually was considered the greatest IC champion of all time. Now, today, the IC belt is just another title. It's lost all its prestige, I feel. I don't think it's really worth that. And it's sad. Because you did have people like Razor Ramon fighting, killing themselves for this title. And it's what made them. While Razor Ramon would never get the WWE heavyweight or the world title, whatever you want to call it back then, the Golden Eagle, his IC title run was just as legendary as any world champion. And that is the facts there. It would. Put in a little bit of effort into the story. Put in a little bit of effort into, why someone should even be IC champion. What's it mean to even be IC champion? Back then people, they wore it proudly. Today, like I said, the IC champion, I feel like people were more intrigued and interested in the 24/7 belt and going after that than they were for the IC title. There's no gateway either. The IC champion, it's not like you're on your way up. You'll see now world champions getting demoted and getting the IC champion rather than vice versa. They need to kind of change that and do something a little bit different, I believe, with that title. But, yeah, I still think Razor Ramon was one of the greatest IC champions. He put a lot of relevancy on that championship belt. He made it what it would be today. And this is one of those larger-than-life characters that just kind of just bloomed. He had this, like I said, this coolness, this oozing machismo that they called it, this charisma that just transcended through. There's something just about, it was cool to be the bad guy, and that's what he taught us. It was okay to be it. And I'm like Brian said the quote earlier, I believe. If I go back a little bit, I've been seeing it all day today. But it's bad things don't last, but bad guys do. And, the bad guy will live on, Again, there's been, like I said, a very sad day in wrestling history, as Scott Hall has passed away quite suddenly and, without much warning at all. I'm still kind of in shock about it just because, 3 days ago, he was fine. Yesterday we heard that, he had some issues with surgery. He had some heart attacks and that he was now in critical condition. Today it was, and it was on life support today. Finding out from Kevin Nash earlier on Instagram that, that he was waiting for the family to kind of come together, pay their final respects, and then they were going to pull the plug on him. And, it's a very tough choice. I'm not his family. I don't know what their thought process was on this. Everybody has their own belief systems on how people should spend their lives when they're in these conditions. I do know, though, that he did fight a little bit after they did remove him from life support. He didn't just die instantly. He did survive a little bit and fought. And, and then he finally succumbed. And it's just like I said, it's very sad. I've been sad about it all day, just seeing, not knowing when it was going to happen. We kind of knew, as, if you read that Instagram that he had posted, it just kind of explained everything. But, again, we're just kind of I just been on here just kind of remembering him and just throwing some of his matches out there that I'd watched. And like I said, I urge anybody that has the Peacock Network to go on there. Do check out that Razor Ramon Coliseum home video special. Has a lot of the great matches I talked about, like the Rick the Model Martel match, as well as the Shawn Michaels match and many others. I think he has like Ludwig Borger on there. There's the Yokozuna match that was never even shown. A few other dark matches. It's a bunch of cool stuff. That is Razor Ramon. And then if you go through the WCW stuff, you'll find all sorts of things. So, I fear everybody well. I hope everybody, I just wish everybody, gets through this the best they can. I know it's hard. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. It sucks. And everybody's kind of mourning this together. And my prayers are just going out to everybody, the fans, and to the family of Scott Hall, and just the friends and everybody that this is touching tonight. Just peace be with you all, and much love. Versace Stoner out.